So for number 4 on the quiz review, right, we're graphing showing vertical or horizontal asymptotes. So whenever we have a function like this, right, y equals 3 to a power minus 5, we just want to look at the key points. Y equals 3 to the x. So we're going to pick x values like 0, 3 to the 0 is 1. And then if we pick 1, 3 to the 1 is 3. So that gives us our first 2 points, and then we're going to move these points based on these values, right? So what's next to x, the opposite happens, right? So x plus 1, the opposite would be minus 1, so we're going 1 to the left, and then minus 5 would be 5 down. So then we'd subtract 5 from our y values, subtract 1 from our x values to get our new points. I'll do another table here, which are going to be, 0 minus 1, 1 minus 1, 1 minus 5 is going to be negative 4, 3 minus 5, negative 2. So we got negative 1, negative 4, 0, negative 2, and those are going to be a final point. So I'm going to graph those, negative 1, negative 4, 0, negative 2. There's our 2 key points. And then there's one more thing. We need to show any vertical or horizontal asymptotes, where our asymptotes are going to be right here with the 5. Because this value cannot get 0, like 3 to the x here cannot equal 0, right? We'll be just above it, like 1 over 3 to the 10 is going to be a really small number, but it's not going to be 0, and then we subtract 5. So y equals k, which in this case is minus 5, is our horizontal asymptote. So going down here to minus 5, we'll just put, normally it's a dashed line, so let's fix it quick. So there's that asymptote, and then you're just going to kind of graph through the points and have it pointing up. It's a little bit easier with hand than by mouse, but the general look is just going to kind of go through those points and go straight up. Next, number 5 is very similar, but it's the inverse, right? Remembering this is the y value here, that this is 3 to the y value equals x. So 3 to the y equals x, and we'll need some tables. Okay, now we have some tables, and this time we're picking the y values on this side. So, because that's the exponent. So 3 to the 0 is 1, and 3 to the 1 is 3, right? So we pick our y's and find x. And so those are starting points, and now we've got 2 things to deal with here. 3 things, sorry. We've got the negative right here, and this is on the outside, right? If it was on the inside, it would look like this, right? Minus x, but it's not. It's on the outside, so that means this is minus 1 times the y values. If it was next to the x, then it would affect the x. So we're going to multiply our y values by negative 1 here, and this is just going to mean instead of 0 positive 1, we're going to get 0 minus 1, and these 2 numbers are just going to come right over. So those are those numbers. Next, then we have to deal with these 2 values here, the minus 2 plus 3. And remember, whatever affects the x, we're doing the opposite here, right? X minus 2, opposite of minus 2 is plus 2, right? If you set it equal to 0, which we also have to do, this will get us another asymptote, but we'll explain that in a second. So we'll deal with that in a second. And then plus 3 is on the outside, so it affects the y. So 2 plus 1, 3, 2 plus 3, 5. And then adding 3 to these values, we get 3. 3 minus 1 is 2. And so we're left with 3, 3. And 5 minus, plus 2. And then lastly, right, like the last problem here, quick, this was our issue. But if we solve this for log form, we get log base 3 of, and we move this 5 over, y plus 5 equals exponent. So in this case, this is where that k value went. So that's why we set the inside. We set these pieces equal to 0. We get 2, and x equals 2 is our vertical asymptote because it flipped from horizontal to vertical. And then, let's see if I got it right here. X is 2. So this line right there is the line that's going to be our asymptote. When we approach that line, but don't go through it, And then going through our 2 points. Again, usually it's pretty easy to be smoother than that, but doing this with a mouse is not as ideal. And that's what that graph looks like. Key points going through those 2 points and having this asymptote. Last question is evaluate the expression without a calculator, show your work, right? And so the first thing we want to do is we want to take this 1.5 and move it to the front, right? Because that's what we can do when we have exponents. So 1.5 times log base 4 of 64. And log base 4 of 64 is something we can do by hand, right? It's basically saying 4 times itself, how many times gets a 64. So write out however many you want to write out. We got 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4 is 64, right? So we get 64 there. And so we only needed 3. So 1, 2, 3, that's what this equals, this number. And so we have 1.5 times 3. And 3 times 1.5 is 4.5. And that wraps up those questions.